What if I told you that investing just $1 a day could kickstart a lifetime of passive income? Over the past year, I put this idea to the test by putting $1 into SCHD every single day. By the end, my portfolio grew to $382, and I earned $12.17 in dividends, proving you don't need a lot to begin building wealth. But the real surprises weren't just in the numbers. You'll see why that 42-cent payout at month 2 felt like hitting a jackpot, and how small, consistent actions change the way I think about money. Let's start at the very beginning, where the habit itself matters more than the amount. When I first set out to invest $1 a day, the goal wasn't to chase impressive returns or make a quick buck. It was about making investing a part of my daily routine, something as automatic as brushing my teeth. That first month, I watched as my portfolio slowly grew by $1 at a time, ending with a total of $30 invested. At first glance, it didn't seem like much, but the real value was in the consistency. Each day I logged in and made my small contribution, I was reinforcing a new habit and building a sense of discipline that I hadn't experienced with money before. It's easy to wonder if such a small step is even worth it. I remember thinking, is this actually doing anything? That skepticism is normal, especially when you're starting with limited funds. But after a few weeks, I noticed a shift. The act of showing up daily, regardless of the amount, became a source of accountability. It wasn't about the $1 itself. It was about proving to myself that I could stick with something, even when the payoff wasn't immediate. That daily check-in made the process feel tangible, and it kept me engaged in a way that simply planning or wishing never could. Choosing SCHD as my investment vehicle was intentional. At the time, SCHD traded around $73 per share, so my $1 a day meant I was buying small fractions, tiny slivers of ownership in some of the biggest, most stable companies in the country. I took time to look into what made up this ETF. When I realized I was buying into companies like Coca-Cola and Home Depot, it made the process more concrete. Instead of feeling like I was just moving numbers around on a screen, I could see my money giving me a real stake in a business I saw and used every day. That connection made the habit stick. I wasn't just saving, I was participating in the growth of companies that shaped the world around me. There's another reason why the $1 per day approach worked. It removed the pressure to time the market or wait for the perfect moment to invest. By sticking to the same amount daily, I was using dollar cost averaging. On days when the market dipped, my dollar bought a little more, almost like getting shares on sale. On days when prices were up, my purchase was a bit smaller. Either way, I didn't have to stress about market swings or try to predict what would happen next. The routine took care of all that. I could focus on showing up, not guessing every move. By the end of the first month, I realized the habit was more important than the dollar figure. The $30 in my account wasn't life-changing, but the discipline I was building was. I started to look forward to contributing each day, not because I expected instant results, but because I was laying the groundwork for something bigger. This mindset shift made all the difference. It changed the way I thought about investing, from something intimidating and complicated to something manageable and even enjoyable. Even though the financial impact was small at this stage, the psychological impact was huge. I was no longer just thinking about investing. I was actually doing it. One day at a time. That sense of progress, however incremental, was enough to keep me motivated. I knew that if I kept this up, the results would eventually follow. But it wasn't until I saw my first dividend payment that the process really started to feel real. That moment, when the first bit of passive income landed in my account, changed my perspective in a way I didn't expect. That's when the habit turned into proof that even the smallest steps can lead to something meaningful. The moment I received my first dividend payout, everything about my approach to investing shifted. After 2 months of steady $1 daily investing into SCHD, I had reached $60 contributed. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, I saw a notification. About $1.13 had landed in my account. This wasn't just a number on the screen. It was the first time I'd ever earned money without having to clock in, send an invoice, or trade my time for a paycheck. That $1.13 was a tangible result of my new habit, and it was hard evidence that the process was working. It's easy to overlook a dollar, especially when you consider how small it seems compared to the effort of building a new routine. But seeing that dividend arrive, knowing that it came from companies like Coca-Cola and Home Depot, businesses I recognized and interacted with in daily life, made it real. I wasn't just saving, I was participating, in a small way, in the profits of some of the biggest names in the market. That $1.13 was one of 4 quarterly payouts that would total $12.17 by year's end. But in that moment, it felt like the start of something much larger. What made this experience different from reading about passive income or watching others talk about it was how concrete it became. Before, the idea of letting your money work for you sounded abstract, something that happened to other people or required massive sums to feel. But when I saw that first dividend hit my account, it clicked. This was money earned simply because I had shown up each day and put in my dollar. That single payout was proof that my small, consistent actions could actually generate results. It was no longer just a theory. The psychological impact on that first dividend can't be overstated. I found myself checking my portfolio more often, not out of anxiety, but because I was genuinely curious to see what would happen next. My relationship with investing changed. It stopped feeling like a chore or a gamble and started to feel like a game. I could actually win, one small step at a time. The excitement wasn't about the amount, it was about the process and the growing sense of control over my financial future. There's something powerful about receiving free money, even if it's only $1. That $1.13 didn't change my financial situation overnight, but it did change my mindset. It created a positive feedback loop. The more I saw results, the more motivated I felt to keep going. That first dividend served as a psychological anchor, reinforcing my commitment to the daily habit and making it easier to stay consistent. Each time I contributed another dollar, I could picture further dividends growing, even if only a few cents at a time. This early success also helped me understand the true value of patience and consistency. The $1.13 wasn't the result of luck or timing the market. It was the direct outcome of sticking to a plan and letting time do the work. The experience peeled away any doubts I had whether $1 a day could matter. It proved that the system, as simple as it was, actually worked. Looking back, that first dividend was a turning point. It marked the moment when investing stopped being just a hopeful experiment and became a strategy I believed in. I started to imagine what could happen if I kept this up, not just for a few months, but for years. The small amount was a glimpse of the snowball effect that could build over time as I continued to invest and reinvest. As the weeks went on, I realized the journey wasn't just about making money. It was about building confidence and seeing progress, no matter how incremental. That first $1.13 was the start of a series of milestones that could make the process feel more and more rewarding. And when the next milestone arrived, the sense of progress became even more tangible. As time passed, the daily $1 investment began to take on new meaning. By the 6-month mark, I had contributed $180 and collected approximately $4.95 to $5 in dividends. These weren't just numbers on a screen. They represented a shift in how I understood progress. The idea of passive income was no longer some distant theory. It was becoming a concrete reality. Each dividend payout, no matter how small, made the process feel more like a snowball gathering speed and size as it rolled forward. That 6-month milestone felt validating in a way that's hard to describe until you've experienced it. Watching those nearly $5 in dividends get reinvested, buying fractions of shares in companies I recognized, brought the concept of compounding to life. Instead of focusing on technical details, I noticed how every single payout, even if it was just 50 cents or $1, added to the foundation for future growth. I started to see this as a loop. Every bit of income was put back to work, and that cycle made the whole process feel alive. By day 200, something subtle but important had changed. The act of investing wasn't just a box to check off. It had become a part of my identity. I realized I'd planned my morning routine around that $1 purchase, making it an integral part of my day. Instead of wondering whether I'd keep up with it, I found myself looking forward to it. The discipline I needed at the start was now replaced by habit, and it was surprisingly satisfying to see how a simple ritual could influence the way I approached other goals in life. I wasn't just investing. I was becoming someone who prioritized action, consistency, and long-term thinking. Market conditions weren't always smooth. There were stretches when SCHD hovered around $75 per share, and I saw the portfolio dip and recover more than once. These fluctuations could have been discouraging, but sticking to the plan helped me to avoid getting caught up in the daily swings. I wasn't tempted to pause or pull back just because the market looked uncertain one week. Instead, I kept my focus on the process, not the latest price. That detachment made it easier to trust that the real progress was happening in the background, even if it wasn't always obvious. The emotional shift was just as significant as the financial one. With each passing week, I felt more confident that the routine was working. The accumulation of dividends and the slow, steady growth of the portfolio made the benefits of consistency tangible. I could see the direct result of my actions. The portfolio wasn't just a side project anymore. It was turning into a real asset, something that reflected not just my financial progress, but also the kind of person I was becoming. The realization that I wasn't just growing my account, I was becoming the type of person who takes action every single day towards financial freedom was both grounding and motivating. Reinvesting every dividend, no matter how small, became a key part of my strategy. Every time SCHD paid me, even if it was 50 cents or $1, I used it to buy more shares. Those new shares, in turn, generated more dividends. It was a simple but powerful loop that showed the real impact of compounding. I started to imagine what might happen if I kept this up for years, or what the results would look like if I doubled my daily investment. The process wasn't flashy or exciting, but it was steady and reliable, and that's what made it work. Not everyone around me understood the appeal. Around day 200, I started hearing more skepticism from friends and acquaintances. Some questioned whether the small returns were worth the effort or if I was wasting my time. Instead of letting these doubts shake my confidence, I used them as reminders of why I started. The small dividends I was earning were proof that the system worked, even if the numbers seemed unimpressive at first glance. I knew that the real power was in the repetition and in the patience to let compounding do its job. This phase of the journey taught me that the snowball effect isn't just about money, it's about momentum and mindset. The habit of daily investing was now ingrained, and the portfolio was visibly growing. The process felt less like a chore and more like a natural extension of my daily life. I could see how these small actions would add up over time, and I became even more committed to this strategy. Of course, the skepticism from others was a reminder that not everyone sees the value in starting small. But I'd learned that tangible progress, no matter how modest, is what keeps you moving forward. And as I approached my next milestone, I found myself thinking about how to respond to those who doubted the process and how to keep my focus on the bigger picture. Not everyone will immediately appreciate the value of small, steady progress, especially when the numbers seem underwhelming at first glance. Around day 250, I shared my results with a friend. $250 contributed, a portfolio of about $265 and $7.40 in total dividends. Their response was blunt. "You made $7 in 8 months." It was an honest reaction, and I could see where they were coming from. To someone looking for fast results, $7.40 doesn't sound like much. But moments like this are common for anyone starting out with small, consistent investments, and they highlight a key challenge: overcoming skepticism, both from others and sometimes from yourself. That conversation made me realize how easy it is to overlook what those early dividends actually represent. The focus often lands on the dollar amount, but the real story is what's behind it. That $7.40 wasn't just a small windfall, it was the sign that the strategy was working. It was money paid out by companies inside SCHD, businesses like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and Verizon, because I owned a piece of them. Each dividend payment was a reminder that these companies were generating profits and sharing them with shareholders, even if my share was still small. Instead of getting discouraged by the modest payout, I reframed the experience. I reminded myself that the $7.40 was more than just spare change. It was proof that owning shares in established, dividend-paying companies creates real, reoccurring value. SCHD is built on a foundation of businesses known for their stability and ability to generate steady cash flow. When I received those dividends, it meant these companies had made money and decided to share it with me, simply because I was an owner. That's a powerful realization, even if the numbers are small at first. To make the impact more tangible, I reinvested the $7.40 right back into SCHD. That single act bought me an extra fraction of a share, which would itself begin earning dividends in future quarters. This is the core of compounding. The small payouts today become the seeds for larger payouts down the line. Over time, these reinvested dividends will keep adding to my total, turning what started as a few dollars into a growing income stream. And because SCHD's dividends are typically qualified, they come with potential tax advantages, making each payout even more valuable in the long run. It's easy to dismiss small steps when you're focused only on immediate results. But building wealth through investing has always been about playing the long game. The $7.40 in dividends wasn't the end goal. It was a signpost along the way, showing that the system was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Every time I saw another dividend land in my account, it reinforced my belief in the process and reminded me that progress doesn't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. Skepticism, whether it comes from others or from your own doubts, can be a real obstacle, but I learned that these moments are a chance to focus on the fundamentals. When I looked past the dollar amount and thought about what it meant to own a stake in major companies, businesses that have survived for decades and continue to reward their shareholders, the strategy made sense. The power of compounding and the reliability of dividend growth are what makes this approach so effective, even if it takes time for the results to become impressive. The lesson here isn't about impressing anyone with quick wins. It's about understanding that every small dividend, every reinvested dollar, and every bit of progress is building a foundation for the future. The journey isn't about how much you make in the first year. It's about sticking with it, trusting the process, and letting time do the heavy lifting. That's what gives small, consistent actions the power to create real change. With that perspective, the value of starting small and staying consistent becomes clear. The early results might not turn heads, but they're the building blocks of something much bigger. And as I kept going, I realized that the real payoff wasn't just in the numbers, it was in the habits and the mindset I was developing along the way. If you want to see real results from investing, focus on what you can control. Steady, repeatable action. The $1 a day SCHD challenge shows that you don't need a big salary or advanced knowledge to get started. With an average of 7% annual return, investing just $1 daily for 40 years could grow to over $85,000 thanks to compounding and reinvesting dividends. You can take that first step right now by setting up a recurring $1 daily order for SCHD in your brokerage app. Remember, it all comes down to three things: habit, patience, and compounding. That's the formula for building lasting wealth.